Hello, this is Patrick Barnard in Montreal. It is February 5, 2024. Another short commentary on a book, in this case, Jonathan Lethem's recent novel, Brooklyn crime novel, published by Echo just in 2023. I got to know Jonathan Lethem by reading, like a lot of other people, Motherless Brooklyn, that was made into a film. I also read his book, Dissident Gardens, which was about his growing up in Brooklyn, New York. Now, despite my accent, I actually grew up in Manhattan, but I'm about 20 years older than Jonathan Lethem. He's about 60 years old, and I am not. However, growing up, as I did in New York City in the 1950s, I played the same games that are here in Brooklyn crime novel. Stoop ball, stick ball, ring-a-levio, which is a kind of tag. And this kind of upbringing described in Brooklyn crime novel is actually very familiar to me. Of course, Lethem is talking about Brooklyn. Brooklyn in what he describes as the unsupervised 1970s. His parents were artists and political activists. They were part of the really changeover that happened in Brooklyn because they were, what he describes in this novel, they were brownstoners, progressive people who moved into neighborhoods that were once poor and then made them fashionable through the process of gentrification. Now, there's a lot of quote-unquote crimes in this book, but they're not the obvious ones at all. They're what you might call the common social crimes of just living in American society. There's a lot of literature and music in this book, behind this book, I would say, and one of the figures is Herman Melville, of all people, because, of course, he was the writer, the great writer who wrote about the white whale and the enigma of whiteness, and that's one of the things that Lethem touches on in this book. He makes fun of himself because he talks about how the fake, gritty Brooklyn brand slowly colonized the glossy pages of the world. And at the end of the book, he even refers to what he's doing as this whole goddamn remorseful nostalgia pile of shit you're always trying to hand me. And that is what he hands us in the book. However, he goes beneath the surfaces of his own life in a very interesting way. Here you see a picture of him sitting on a stoop in the neighborhood in which he grew up. You can see how gentrified it has become. But his theme in this book is the street life of kids away from their parents. As he puts it, the street in the book is the real life. The kids know that life, and the parents do not. A lot of the book is also about the hidden areas of sexuality among young people. And Lethem has described himself as a bisexual, and that's one of the themes that wanders through the novel in a most interesting way. And he himself has pointed out that very few reviewers have actually highlighted this aspect of the book. The book is centered on children, on kids, on the false oasis of their childhood in a Brooklyn that was changing and that was full of conflicts between various people, between groups, between black and white, Puerto Ricans, immigrants, even Mohawk Indians, and the false oasis, as he puts it, of their childhood, which is actually the area of reality. There they perform what Lethem calls the dance. The dance is the complex interaction between all these groups in a changing Brooklyn. Now, when I was a kid, that was in the 1950s, 20 years before the time that Lethem describes, I knew Brooklyn only as a place where I went to watch the Brooklyn Dodgers, Jackie Robinson, number 42. I walked down Atlantic Avenue with my mother. I also went to Coney Island. It was a place you went to. Here, Brooklyn is the center of the whole story. The picture you get of the children's world in 1970s Brooklyn is fascinating. Because what do the children know that the parents do not? The parents give their children mugging money, so they're supposed to hand that over when they get mugged. But it's the kids who live the reality of the city more than the parents do. And what do they know? Well, in the words of the book, everybody knows, these are the children, okay? Everybody knows you get robbed, mobbed, jumped, whatever you want to call it, by kids. Everybody knows. So this is what was really happening among the kids. Now, Lethem loved this and, in fact, has found a great deal of wealth in his own upbringing. This is the real life of the street, what is beyond really the hard-boiled memories of nostalgia, the reality of what was going on with these kids. And there's various people in the book, but they do not get names. They have nicknames, which is what happens on New York streets. People get nicknames. And one of the most interesting characters is simply known as C. He is a black young kid who operates as a kind of mediator between the various people who are living in this changing neighborhood in the 1970s. And then there's the wheeze. And the wheeze really gives you the theme of the whole book because he's in a bar and he talks to the voice, the central voice, the narrator of the novel. And he talks about how shamed longing curdles into violence. And his thesis is that what we never speak of, what we always mean, is what he described as something shamed, furtive, denied, displaced. In the lives of these children in this book, and they are anonymous, they have nicknames such as C and the Wheeze, you get a very deep feeling of the rich, poignant life of kids who are enduring, living through the process of gentrification in Brooklyn. What Lethem refers to at the end of the book is the whole goddamn remorseful, nostalgic pile of shit you're always trying to hand me. He does that in this book, and it's a wonderful kind of revelation.